episode 4 of Backstage in the Peg. Thanks for joining us.
As the president of Jessica Dumas Coaching and Training, Jessica is an esteemed facilitator and Indigenous advisor who uses her passion and knowledge to help businesses create more diverse and inclusive teams. In 2019, she became the first Indigenous chair of the board of directors in the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce's 146-year history. We sat down to talk about her journey and how she continues to prioritize her work in her role at the Chamber.
I grew up in an area that, really didn't support, promote, or encourage celebration of being First Nation or being Indigenous. And because of that, for years, even as an adult, I had that constant feeling of I didn't fit in and I didn't belong somewhere. So for me to be serving as chairperson for one of the largest business organizations in Winnipeg or in Manitoba has been a lot of courage. There's been a lot of times where I felt like, do I want to go in there again? Do I want to make myself uncomfortable again? But throughout exploring, in my personal career as a life coach, exploring how to support people managing that courage of feeling the fear and doing it anyway was something that I had to continuously practice. And that was really, I had to make a place for myself to belong. And I had to not only convince the crowd that I belonged, but also convince myself that I belonged.
Amazing.
So, I would say that has a lot to do with it.
That's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about what the Chamber of Commerce is doing in terms of advocating and supporting for its membership during this time of COVID.
Well, the Chamber has been very busy. I've been saying that as soon as the world started to shut down, the Chamber started to ramp up. There's been so many conversations and discussions that have really been highlighted in a lot of the media. Our CEO, Lauren Remillard, has been very active in that area. Advocating for our members. We're listening to our members. We have a membership survey that we started doing on a weekly basis to really get a glimpse of what is going on out there and what do we need to do as a chamber. We developed a Chamber Economic Recovery Advisor Council. And again, that's to communicate business needs to government and, fill those gaps for support. But there's also weekly, monthly webinars, so much information on the website. And we've also launched a Truth and Reconciliation Roadmap in the midst of this. It's something that we were planning on doing and continue to do the work anyway. And it's a guide for businesses, especially here in Winnipeg, to respond to the calls to action. So we've been doing a whole bunch of stuff.
The thing that I love about the creative process is that it's both subjective and objective at the same time. I love to sit in rehearsal, and all of the inspiration I get for a lighting design or a video design comes from sitting in rehearsal. What I enjoy about sitting in rehearsal is seeing how a piece develops and seeing the interactions between the people and how they find the humor in a moment or the sorrow in a moment or the meaning of a moment, and how as a group we all come to an understanding about what the play or the dance choreography is about. In my mind, I've always had X-ray vision. The idea for Invitation, a socially distant performance installation, came from walking down the street with my partner Angela and talking about what are people doing nowadays in the COVID times inside their houses. How have people's routines changed? We took that idea and ran with it, and with the support of the Manitoba Arts Council, put together an evening where you could come to our house and see what was going on a typical Friday night. People came to see it and loved it. We were astounded by the positive reaction to this, and so we hope to keep it going for the rest of the summer.
Hugh Conacher is a lighting designer, a multimedia designer, and a photographer. He has collaborated with choreographers, dance companies, and theaters across Canada and around the world for over 30 years.
Hi, I'm Ari Weinberg, and this is The Punchline, where I toss headlines from previous editions of the Winnipeg Free Press to actors and/or comedians, and they improvise the articles. I'm here with Jessie Mickey and Anjali Sandhu from the improv troupe D&D Improv, right? They are long staples and a long tradition of the Winnipeg Fringe Festival. Thank you both so much for joining us today at The Punchline.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So, okay, to start things off, Jessie, your headline is Big Kids Teach Little Kids. You've got 30 seconds on the clock.
This one I was 100% involved in. There was a grade 6, grade 1 alliance that we had. I had a very, very small elementary school, only 100 people at max. And so a lot of the time, we had sort of this mentorship program where we would get the grade 6s and we'd all pick a buddy in grade 1 and we were supposed to be best friends with them. And I was really excited about mine because he was a little hyper version of myself and I wanted to shape him into something better than myself. But I guess I graduated from there and I never saw how that ended up.
Oh, surprise ending. Who knows how it ended? Amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing that personal story. Anjali, your headline is Slurpees and Winnipeg. Go.
Great. So there was a point in time back in the 90s where Slurpees did not exist in Winnipeg. So there was a huge petition, bring the Slurpee to Winnipeg. We promise that we will drink more Slurpees per capita than anywhere in the world. And as you all know, there's one kid and he drank so many Slurpees single-handedly that we have maintained that record until this day. So we've got that little guy to thank for it, and we still are going Slurpee strong in Winnipeg. And
yeah, we're just record holders here in the Peg City. Thank you for that. Amazing. Well, now 30 seconds. I need the two of you to tell me, what do your stories have in common?
So I mentioned a little guy who was responsible for our Slurpee victories. Guess who that was? Now, Jessie doesn't know this, but that was Jessie's grade 1 buddy.
Little Trevor?
Yeah, you did your job well, Jessie. That was all your little guys doing.
You know, I only taught him one thing, and that was that life is nothing without flavor. So I hope he's still making swamp water like he used to.
Well, thank you so much. And Trevor, thank you for being a Winnipeg record holder for all of us. Good job, Jessie, teaching him everything he knows.
Hard lessons.
Thank you both so much for being a part of this edition of The Punchline. Fun facts. Jessie, your headline was from February 25th, 1992. And Anjali, your headline was from July 14th, 2013. That's it for The Punchline. Why don't we boogie oogie over to Katie German and the Whiz Kids?
Hi, and welcome to Whiz Kids. March 2020 marked the month that most schools had to make the decision to shut their doors due to the pandemic. Many teachers and students went online to continue their learning. This group of performers decided to rewrite a contemporary hit to comment on how things went this last semester. Here is Callie, Katie, Holly, Emma, Kayla, Sarah, and Catherine's fan video, Quarantine is Hard.
My days are so busy, it's making me dizzy. There's so much I gotta do. There's lunches, team meetings, and poetry readings, and endless schoolwork too. Got a Zoom call for science when my old appliance just loads for eternity. Then it's off to the choir where my teacher will try, but will be at a time and key. Then it's back to my room where I resume my attempt to write a hit. Just me and my essay, and lots of me stressing that I might be losing it. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's really, really hard. So very, very hard. I make it look easy, but honey, believe me, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. So incredibly hard. So inconceivably, unbelievably hard. Quarantine is hard. I've got so many plans and so many demands, I can hardly go take a class. She can learn. Be a theater freak or geography teacher, they all want a piece of this. It's a cross that I bear. I'm like, Jesus, I swear it's a burden, but I suffer through it. It's a part of my school, and it's not very cool, but I'm kind of forced to do it. So she does it. And I know, I gotta go and get back to my pen and ink. Oh, don't make me do it. Don't make me go through it. I really don't want to think. It's really the worst. It's hard. Makes me wonder if 2020 is cursed. It's hard to alleviate the pressure to be great. It's hard to do something productive when all you can think of is the length of the way. It's hard. So hard. It sucks to be so on guard. My entire year has been marred. All that I need is to know when it ends. Go somewhere and hang out with my friends. To do all of the regular stuff. Isolation's terribly and unbearably hard.
All right, COVID. I think it's time for your show to take its final bow. Cause it's hard. It's hard. It's totally hard. It's hard. It's totally hard. It's hard. It's totally hard. 10-minute homeworking from Google Chrome. We can't help it. It's so freaking hard.
In 2019, Uzoma Aswagara became the first ever Black queer person to be elected to the Manitoba Legislative Assembly. They are the founder of Queer People of Color Winnipeg and has served on the board of the Plug-in Institute of Contemporary Art. Tell us about your connection to the arts.
Sure. I've been connected to the arts my entire life. I was fortunate to grow up in a household where my parents had art around us all the time. It was everywhere in our house, and it was predominantly Nigerian, West African art, and a lot of indigenous art. It was really important to my parents, and therefore inevitably really important to us and to me, certainly. And so I grew up with an appreciation for the arts and a passion and a love for accessing the arts.
And how would you say that art is impacting your day-to-day right now?
Art's a really important part of my day-to-day. I find myself, scrolling through social media and looking for new artists to me, Black artists specifically. Paying attention to the global protests that are happening right now. You can see that art is an integral part of these protests, and specifically the art of Black artists and around Black Lives Matter, using art as a way to communicate with the world. And it's also a place for me to find reprieve, to find joy, to celebrate, to heal spiritually and otherwise. Art is foundational to my day-to-day.
Totally, me too. And can you talk about how you feel that art is impacting your communities?
Art has always impacted my communities. Certainly it's an important part of historical documentation and historical expression. And certainly now I'm seeing how the Black community is using art to, again, express ourselves and to document what's going on and to articulate, what's happening in our communities authentically. And as a queer person, art has always been so important to our communities in terms of expression and visibility and communicating what's going on in our communities and being authentic to who we are. Art has always been a mechanism for incredible social change and advocacy, all of which is really important to the communities I'm a part of.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been awesome chatting with you.
Likewise.
Let's not go back to normal. It's such a puny ambition, a mediocre aspiration, an ordinary vision. Let's not go back, let's go forward to extraordinary. Let's go upward to transcendent. Let's go outward to inclusion. Let's go around to revolution. Let's go sideways to experimentation. Let's go beyond to exploration. Let's go down to the foundation. Let's excavate the structures of the systems we rely on, because they're crumbling beneath us and the cracks have let the light in. And suddenly we can see all the things we pretended not to know. So let's not go back to normal. This new world has given us a glimpse of a new way of being with a whole new set of reasons and options and priorities and questions. For the first time, we've agreed that our productivity isn't as important as our well-being, as if people are more important than stuff. And the obscenity of the alternative is no longer acceptable, appalling really that we ever thought it was normal to leave the care of our elders to be compromised by profit margins, to let people who can't work just languish in miserable poverty, to punish the poor for their poverty, to meet desperation with obstruction or force or confinement, to take for granted the labor of people who can't choose anything more than the bare minimum, to sacrifice at the altar of overtime for the privilege of overconsumption, to volunteer our labor in the form of interest by buying stuff we don't need with money we don't have from people who are indifferent to the damage that does to us, to our communities, to the earth itself. To allow ourselves to become commodities perfectly packaged for public consumption. To let capitalist competition undermine all of our interactions. Because in systems of competition, eventually we will all lose. But in systems of cooperation, we can all move forward together. So let's not go back to normal. Let's move forward together into a new world. Let's imagine it. Let's write it. Let's dramaturge it. Let's design it. Let's build it. Let's direct it. And then we can inhabit it, respecting our given circumstances, with clear intentions and a commitment to the truth of the moment. We know how to do this. This is what we've trained for. This is what we've developed our chops for, and we know how to make it better. We know it's better when we're vulnerable. We know it's better when we take risks. We know it's better when we put our focus on the other person and not on ourselves. So let's not go back to normal. Let's trust the process. Let's engage rigorously with our collaborators, challenging ourselves and each other to do better. And let's all move forward together.